I use the grid settings to set my routing grid and component grid separately. With nothing selected, I right-click in the workspace and click Properties to open the Design Properties dialog box. Then I click the Grid tab. I set the routing grid resolution to 12. I also set my component grid to 25, and I ensure the corresponding Snap Objects to Grid checkbox is selected. I click OK. I can now move my components in my design in keeping with the component grid resolution. I don't have to change my routing grid settings first to achieve the desired placement resolution, as the component grid is independent. Similarly, when I route the design, the traces route on a separate grid, and I don't have to change the routing grid settings to achieve the resolution I desire. In addition to using grid settings, I use Visual Design Rule Checking as an aid when placing components. On the main toolbar, I click the DRC Filter button. On the DRC Filter toolbar, I enable Design Rule Checking by clicking the DRC On-Off button. Next, I click the DRC Settings button. In the Design Rule Checking dialog box, I enable the Placement and Clearance checks. Then I ensure the error response for each is set to Prevent. I click Close. I select a component and place it on the PCB next to another component. When I move the component so that it exceeds clearance requirements with the adjacent component, the appearance of the first component changes, indicating a placement rule violation. The software also rejects any attempt to place it, as the component remains attached to the cursor. Certain visual design features provide feedback for placing components associated with length-restricted nets. You can learn more about using these features by watching the video, Getting Visual Design Rules Feedback While Interactively Routing.